Guys, this is Math 7, Unit 7, Assignment 3, page 269, number 1 to 4. In Book A, it's about outliers. This is the answer key. So number 1 says, this set of data represents the waiting times in minutes at a fast food restaurant. So this is how many minutes they are. I've taken that data set and I've rearranged it from least to greatest because I knew that I was going to need to calculate the median, and that's finding the middle number. So if they're out of order, I'm not necessarily going to easily be able to find the middle number. But it says in part A, calculate the mean, median, and mode. So let's start with the mean. Let's do it this order. What I did, for mean, you need to add up all the numbers in the data set and then count how many there are and divide by what you've counted by. So I went through and I went 1, 3, and started counting up, adding what it was, and I just wrote on top what I was up to, and I ended up with 124. And there's 25 numbers, so the bottom is 25. So we have 124 25ths. Now I realized that 100 of those 25ths, 100 of those could become 4 by dividing by 25. We'd end up with 4 on the top and the bottom would be 1. 4 for 1 is 4. So we know that the mean is going to be 4 decimal something. We had 124, 124, we split it up. Now looking at this, 24 25ths, if I take this and I put it into, make it into hundredths by multiplying by 4, so I multiply the bottom and the top by 4, I end up with 96 100ths. 96 100ths, so in my 100th spot, I'm going to put that 6, the rightmost digit, and fill in here. So our mean is 4.96 minutes. Okay, because I said that this was minutes in the court. Median is nice and easy now that we've organized this. There's 25 numbers, which means it's going to be that middle number. Divide 25 by 2 and round up, and we'll end up with 13. So it's the 13th number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. It's this one right here. Even if I made a mistake counting one way or the other, it would be there. The other way is to just cross one from each side, and eventually we get to that number. So the median is 5 minutes. And finally, the mode. Well, it's pretty obvious. There's one that there's way more of. There's 12 fives, right? So the mode is also 5 minutes. It's the most common. All right. Part B says to identify the outliers. Now looking at this data set, you know, there's 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7, 8, 9. It's just kind of counting up. They're all still within one of each other. Counting down, 5, 4. We don't have a 3. We don't, and then it's 2, 1, 0, 0. So if there are any outliers, they're the ones that suddenly there's kind of some numbers skipped, right? There's a 3 missing in here. There's no 3, which would suggest that these numbers here, 0, 1, and 2 would be outliers. Why? Because they are somewhat different from this 5, this median and this mode. Now, if you think about it, 8 and 9 are just as different from 5. You know, 8 is 3 more and 9 is 4 more than 5, in the same way that 2 is 3 less and 1 is 4 less. So there's the same difference. The only thing here, though, is we have some values missing, which is why these would often be considered outliers, whereas these ones would not, because there's that 6 and 7 in there that would connect it by that same increment. I did not find this question very easy to see, so I'm not going to be necessarily counting these, but for part C, I'm going to be looking at this and calculating based on it. I think that a question, to be kind of fair, would have more of a significant difference than just this 3 missing. Usually it would be a couple numbers. But we're going to calculate the mean, median, and mode with these outliers not being used, is what it's saying here. So we're going to get rid of a 0, a 0, a 1, and a 2. Okay. So the mean would get rid of these numbers, right? Which 2 plus 1 plus 0 plus 0 would be 3, right? 3 less than 124 is 121. And remember, we're getting rid of 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers, and we had 25 here. So getting rid of 4 from 25 would be over 21. So let's calculate this. All right, let's do long division. 21 doesn't go into 12. It goes into 121. If we count up, 5 times 21 is 105, okay? So 105 was 5 times 21. We're going to borrow here 11, 6, 1, so it's 16. Now we ran out of numbers, which means that's where a decimal goes, and we're going to bring down a 0. 20 goes into 160. Let's keep counting up. So this was 5 times, 6 times, 7 times would be 147. 13. Bring down another 0, 130. Well, 6 times was 126. We'll get a 4, bring another one down. Okay, it only goes in one time, which would be 21, which leaves 19. I feel like this is going to go on for a while. And at a certain point, we need to remember that this is minutes. We don't really look at much more than, 1 or 2 decimal places when we're talking about minutes. In the grand scheme of things, would they really care at a restaurant if it took 2 seconds longer? Probably not. Let's see if this stops here. That's 8 times, 9 times is 189. This is going to end up at some sort of repeating decimal, I bet. 0, 0, still 10. Bring down another. We're at 100. All right, I went ahead and I found that, guess what? We got to this point where we had 7 here. 7 times 20 was 147. We're going to subtract. We're going to end up with 13. Now notice something here. We had 16, then we had 13. We had 16, then we had 13. If we're still following this through, guaranteed the next one's going to be a 4, the next one's going to be a 19, and the next one's going to be a 10, and then so forth. Okay, it's going to repeat that, a 1 and then a 10. It's going to repeat that thing, which means that as soon as you get to a digit that's repeating here, we know that this is going to be a repeating decimal. Now, likely we should just round this, so let's round it to 1 decimal place. It's going to be 5.8 because a 6 tells us 7 to round up minutes. So that's approximately what it would be. I think that would be a fair way to do that. Just realized I was off the screen. Sorry, guys. The 16 gets repeated, right? And then it's a 13 right after, which tells you that this pattern is just going to continue if we kept going. So 5.8, or maybe you did 5.76 or 5.761, 5, so forth. Anything that has some of these digits in the right order would work. Now our median, if we were to get rid of these bottom 4, so we'd have 21 values. The middle number would be the 11th number. Let's count up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11. It's still 5. And the mode, what's the most common? It's still 5. So looking at this, median and mode stayed the same. Mean increased. Okay, this right here, 2 marks, 1 mark. From part A, each of these was 1 mark, so out of 3. And I'm not giving a mark necessarily for calculating the exact value here. what's important is realizing that getting rid of outliers that are lower than your median would cause the mean to increase. Okay, question 2 says Brian recorded the time he spent on the school bus each day for 1 month. Here are the times in minutes. Part A, we need to calculate the mean, median, and mode times. I ordered these. I put them in order from least to greatest. I counted, there's 20 values, and I counted in my book, and there were 20 values, so I didn't make a mistake there. First thing we need to do is calculate the mean. We need to add it all up. Okay, and going through and adding it up, I ended up with 427. Okay, and I had 20 numbers, so it's divided by 20 to get my mean. I did some long division to figure that out, and I ended up with 21.35. And this was this was minutes, okay? So this is mean is 21.35 minutes. Median, this is to find the middle number, but we have an even number set, so there's going to be 2 numbers in the middle. So let's count through. Let's just cross these off. I think a faster way is, I know it's 20, I'm going to divide by 2, which is 10, and so I know it's my 10, and then the number that's above that, 11th number. So count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11th number, it's these 2. There's 9 numbers here, 9 numbers here. These are the 2 middle ones. They're the same number, so that's what the median is, 18 minutes. If they were different numbers, we'd have to find the mean of those 2 numbers. And finally, the mode is the most common. So looking through, we've got 1, 1, 3, 2, 2, 2, 1, 5. Okay, it's 15. That's the most common. All right, part B says to identify the outlier. How can you explain this time? Okay, I forgot to put my A there. B, we need to identify the outlier. Well, looking at these numbers, 14, 15, it's just going about 1. 16, it went up by 2 to 18. Went up by 1 to 19. 1, 1, 1. And then 95 minutes, which is more than 4 times the one that's the closest in value. So obviously 95 is the outlier. That absolutely is true, that's the outlier. How could you explain this time? Perhaps the bus broke down. Or there was a parade and the bus got stuck in traffic. So there was a parade, or there's a whole lot of different ones. Something that would cause the bus to not go as fast are reasons why this could be true, that it made this 95 being so much longer than the other ones. Part C says to calculate the mean, median, and mode times without the outlier. So we're going to do these same calculations up here, but getting rid of that one number that's the outlier, that 95. And how is the average affected? So we're going to look at that. All right, so the mean was 427 divided by 20, but we're getting rid of that 95. So let's get 29. I don't know why I wrote that. 27, we're going to get rid of 95 from it. Oh, sorry. Skipped ahead. 12 is 3 and 3. So 332 is what we're going to do for our denominator, 332. And we're going to divide by, instead of 20, we're going to divide by 19. It's one less number. There's one outlier, it's one less, because 20 subtract 1 would be 19. So our mean is going to be, all right, so some long division, it's 332 divided by 19. You're going to get 17.47, and it would keep going. Once you got a couple decimal places when you're working with minutes, that's fine enough. If you want 17.5 or within that range, 17.5 is fine. 17.47 and something else at the end there, that's fine. Looking at the median, so getting rid of that top number, all that would happen is it would move so that rather than both of these, it would just be the lower of them. So the median would actually stay the same. It's 18 minutes still. And the mode, which is the most common, it's still 15. You didn't get rid of 15, so it's still the most common, and you didn't add any other values, so it's still 15. So in this case, It asks, how is it affected? Well, again, the median and mode stay the same. The mean, look at it, it went from 21.35 to 17.47, decreased. So when you get rid of a number that's greater than your median and the majority of the numbers, when you get rid of a greater, what happens to the mean? The mean goes down. So you get rid of a big number and it goes down. And in question 1, we found out when you get rid of a smaller number, the mean goes up. So the mean is greatly affected by outliers. That's what we're learning in this lesson here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is what this part's out of. And this one was out of 2 because you need your reason and you need 95 minutes. And 1, 2, 3, those 3 are what this is out of here. Let's go on to question 3. All right, a clothing store, it says in question 3, carries pant sizes 28 to 46. So that's a key thing to remember when we get the rest of this. The sales clerk records the sizes sold during her 6-hour shift. So maybe they're trying to figure out which things they need to buy. So they're keeping track of what pants get sold so they can replace those and always have things in stock. So I'm going to write down the values in order from least to greatest because I see that it says median. All right, so here's the values. They are from least to greatest. I went through and I just found the least was 4 and I kept going up until I got to 46. And I counted, there's 15 values here, and in the book there were 15 values. So part A again says to calculate the mean, median, and mode. So I'm going to do it in that order. So just adding up, I'm going to go across. All right, so I added it all up and I ended up that the mean is going to equal 516, and there were 15 numbers, so divided by 15. And using my long division here, I actually got to an exact amount this time. The mean size is 34.4. Now, you're going to notice that that's not a size of pants that they'd sell, right? So that would tell you that the mean doesn't have to be a number that's in the set. This is just if it was all evenly distributed, so part of a size ended up being distributed to a different one. So that's what the mean size is. Now the median would be the middle one. So let's count through. 15 divided by 2 is 7.5. So it's going to round up. It's the 8th number is the middle one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's right there. It's 36. And our mode is going to be our most common number. Only 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 36s. And there's 3 32s. There's more 36s than 32s, so the mode is 36. Simple as that. Just because 32 has more than the others doesn't make it the mode because it isn't the most. So this one's going to be out of 3 marks. Go to B. It says, is there an outlier? If so, why do you think it's an outlier? Well, thinking about it, are there any sizes that are way different than the rest? Well, yeah, size 4. There's 2 reasons why. It's a whole lot less than this next one, 28, but perhaps there's someone who wears size 4 and jeans, 4-inch, maybe not, maybe a baby, but what we need to remember is that first sentence in the question, it said a clothing store carries pant sizes 28 to 46. 28 to 46. Is 4 and 28 to 46? No, it's not. So 4 is the outlier. The rest of the numbers fit in the sizes, so they're probably right. 4 is the outlier. How could we explain this? Here's one idea. Perhaps she or he is collecting some these numbers and is just writing them down, or maybe is typing it into the computer and made a mistake and accidentally only hit 4 once. Maybe this was supposed to be 44 and they messed up. Human error. Recording this might be 4 might be the reason, right? That's one reason. Have you guys ever tried to type try to type two numbers and you accidentally type one, or you try to type one and you accidentally type two. It happens. Sometimes you accidentally double letter. So that's probably the reason why this happened. Now part C, again, it's just like the other questions. We need to calculate the mean, median, mode sizes without that outlier. So thinking about it, for mean, it was 516 over 15. We're going to get rid of 4 from that. So 516 subtract 4. Notice I didn't do equal sign, I did an arrow because it's changing. Okay, subtract 4 and 15, we're getting rid of one number. So that's going to end up giving us 500, that was weird, 512 over 14. So we need to do the division to figure out our new mean. All right, doing some long division here. I ended up with a lot of digits and it kept going around our room. That's okay. Let's just round it to 36.6, okay? I chose one decimal because my answer up here had one decimal. That's kind of just how I chose this. If you wrote 36.57, that would be okay as well. So I'm fine with that. If you wrote more digits, that's fine as well. So that's the mean. Our median, it's that center number. So looking here, if we got rid of that bottom one, it's going to be our 14 numbers divided by 2 is 7. It's going to be these middle two numbers, right? So 36 and 36, it's still 36. And our mode, well, our mode didn't change again. Notice our mode and our median often don't change when there's an outlier, unless that outlier is part of the mode and there's multiple outliers, but then that would suggest that maybe that is a proper data point. Did it say here? Yeah, it says how is each average affected? Well, again, median and mode are unchanged. Mean, think about it, we got rid of a number that was less than our median, so that means that the mean would go up. And let's look at it. It went up by 2.2 approximately. Mean increased. And the amount that it increases or decreases has to do with how different that outlier is. This wasn't nearly as much as that 95 in question number 2. So this would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 marks. Part B, 4 is outlier, and a reason would be 2 marks. Let's go on to question 4. Again, order the numbers from least to greatest, because I know in part A it says calculate mean, median, and mode. So the mean, we need to add all of these. All right, so adding all of this, I got to 811. So it's 811 divided by the 12 numbers that are there, and doing some long division, I ended up getting to this repeating 3-digit. It's 67.583 with just the 3 repeating, or it could have been 67.58 because often it'll round. I'd also accept a 67.6. I should have put a box around all of that. So any of those would work. The median is the middle number, but there's 2 middle numbers. Why? Because 12 divided by 2 is 6. We take it, divide by 2 is 6, so it's going to be the 6th and the 7th number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7th. Oh, it's the same number, which is easy. It's going to be 68%, or marks, I should say. Mode. Our mode is going to be the most common one. 93, these only have 1. There's 68 and 68, which there's 2 of. There's 65 and 65, there's 2 of. So there's 2 modes. There's 65 and there is 68. They're both modes. So there's 2 marks for that one there. So we're going to have this out of 4 for part A, because you get a mark for each of those. Now looking at this, which number is an outlier? Well, you know, sometimes people get down in the 60s, sometimes they get up in the 90s. This isn't very odd, out of the normal. But this number here, this 0 is an outlier. How would we explain this outlier? Perhaps the teacher, that student was absent and the teacher put in a 0, which often isn't done nowadays. Or perhaps the student really had no idea what they were doing. Maybe the student just wasn't feeling it that day and decided to sabotage their whole mark in science just because they felt like it. So there's a whole lot of reasons, but perhaps it's not just that the student did poorly, but it could have been. There's a lot of different reasons. One of them also could be maybe it was a multiple choice test and the student just decided to guess random, and just probability wise it doesn't make too much sense, but maybe they just always guessed wrong on it. Maybe it was just a really tricky test, but the odds of that happening, that last one, probably not. It's more likely the student was absent and the teacher, maybe the student skipped class. Maybe the student was supposed to be in class and wasn't there, and the teacher said, well, you skipped, it's going to be 0. If you had showed up, I would have given you some extra grace. Who knows? This book's older, and that's actually one of the options that it says in the answer key. Part C says to calculate the mean, median, and mode without the outlier, so it's that same thing again. And how is each average affected? We already know we're getting rid of a number that's a whole lot less, so we're expecting our mean to go up, right? We've already learned that in a previous question. So now thinking about it, the mean, if we get rid of a 0, it's still going to be that 811, right? Get rid of 0 from 811, it's still that number. But we're going to have one less number we're dividing by, so it's going to be 11. It's going to divide by. So let's do the long division. And we end up getting to the 73.72 repeated. So it's going to be 73.72 repeated. Or we could write even 74, or it could be 73.7. Any of those I'd accept for our mean on this question. Median. Well, our middle number would have just bumped up 1, and looking at that, it wouldn't be these two, it'd just be this one right here. It's still 68. And our mode, again, the mode is still the same. We didn't get rid of a 65 or 68, so it's still 65 and 68. So to answer this, what didn't change? Median and mode stay the same. Mean increased. So those are 3 marks right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's out of 7 for that question. There's a part D on this question, which there was a part D on question 3 that I realized I missed, that I'll discuss at the end. But part D said, should the outlier be used when reporting the average test mark? The outlier shouldn't be used when reporting the average test mark because it's assumed that perhaps that student was missing, or perhaps they missed quite a bit and they're going to need to do some catch up. So it most likely should be ignored. It really depends what the situation is, because maybe it should be counted in some cases, but we're not going to do part D for marks. Should be ignored is the likely answer for that. To go back to question 3, we forgot to do D here. Well, I did. It said, should the outlier be used when the sales clerk reports the average pant size sold during her shift? Obviously not, because 4 isn't one of the sizes. No, it shouldn't, because 4 isn't a size that's sold. So it's obviously not a real value that should be there. It's not a size that is sold at the store. This is question 3D, just so we aren't confused here. So this would be 2, the answer no, and then a reason would be what that is. Going back here, let's just count up all these marks. This is a long video, almost half an hour. We have 7 plus 4 plus 2 is 13. I'll just add it up. Question 3, we've got 3 and 2 plus 6 is 11, 13. So 3 is out of 13 as well. So that's 26 we're up to. Question 2, there's 2 And 3 plus 6 is 11. I realized we didn't do question D there. That's fine. Let's just go on. We're at 37. And then we had 3 plus 3 is, where were we at? 37. We're at 43. It'll be out of 43 marks.